Dear Church, this month we observe Juneteenth, the celebration of the end of chattel slavery and the emancipation of enslaved African Americans. From 1619 to 1865, people of African descent were treated as property who could be bought and sold, tortured and mistreated in the most inhumane ways in this country. Stolen from their native lands, ripped from their families, forced into bondage, and stripped of all rights of humanity. It would take a civil war between the northern and southern states to bring an end to this American tragedy. On January 1st, 1863, President Abraham Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation, which released all people held captive in Confederate states as free people. However, it wasn't until June 19, 1865, that the news reached Galveston, Texas, and the last of those who were enslaved were released from bondage. Families were united, people of faith gathered, meals were shared, and a new hope was born. Officially, freedom was granted to all, but unsurprisingly, it was short-lived. Laws were then put in place that restricted access to economic advancement, voting, education, and property ownership for all people of African descent. We know the dreadful history of the rise of the Ku Klux Klan, Jim Crow laws, and the horror of lynching. My father, William Frederick Eaton, was born in 1924. Like thousands of his generation, he enlisted in the Army during World War II. He became an Army Air Corps officer at the age of 20. He flew B-24s and served in North Africa and Italy. My father's bomb group had a fighter escort squadron. It was the job of these men to protect pilots like my dad. The escorts were the Tuskegee Airmen, the Red Tails, brave men who served our country. After World War II, our government enacted the GI Bill that made benefits like college tuition and low-interest home loans available for veterans. My father was a beneficiary of the GI Bill. Following his service in the war, he came home, married my mother, and they began to build a life together. They bought their first house, and my father went to night school and earned his bachelor's degree. Like my father after the war, the Tuskegee Airmen came home to start families and build lives. However, despite their sacrifices, despite wearing the same uniform and flying the same missions, they were denied the benefits of the GI Bill because they were African American. This is white supremacy. It doesn't diminish my father's courage and service. It doesn't mean that white servicemen like my father didn't sacrifice and work hard for the benefits that they received. However, so did the Tuskegee Airmen. They worked just as hard, were just as courageous, and made just as many sacrifices. Yet because of racism and white supremacy, they were unjustly denied their benefits. And it's still happening. Our African descent siblings continue to experience unfair systems built around white supremacy. But it's not their responsibility to undo these structures. It's up to us white Americans to challenge systemic racism and white privilege. I encourage you to address the structures and rhetoric that empower and fuel racism, white privilege, and white supremacy, and to take to heart the teaching of scriptures, so we may all be better equipped to speak boldly about the equal dignity of all persons in the eyes of God. Juneteenth continues as a celebration of the resilience of African Americans. It lifts up the triumph over tragedy and the quest for a day when America fulfills the ideals of freedom and liberty for all by righting the wrongs of the past. Today, it is more important than ever to remember and learn from the tragedies and inequities of our nation's racial past. To learn more about ways to address white supremacy, I encourage you to download a copy of the ELCA's resource, Dismantle, an Anti-White Supremacy Devotion. We will share a link at the end of this video. We can't ignore it. We must face it and act courageously. Fairness is a core American value. We've grown up believing that everyone deserves a fair shot. But now our eyes are open to the systemic injustices of this nation embedded in the systems, structures, and institutions of this nation's fabric. As Jesus said, "You will know the truth, and the truth will make you free." The truth can be uncomfortable, even painful, but is the path to freedom. And until all of us are free, none of us truly are. Be well, dear Church.